job. So Moses is here with us. Hello, Moses. Good evening.
Hi, Abosede. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to be here.
Good evening, Moses.
That prep session was the first session I joined in PIP, and I'm glad that I'm.
Good evening, Moses. I mean, how does it feel to be a hot
I wouldn't say that it was hot, Sha, because I mean, over time, I've come to.
Moses, I can't hear you properly.
Sorry, can anyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear
Abosede,
Moses actually clearly.
I think it's a network. You might want to refresh that. Sorry, guys. Let's just give 8 minutes. Hi, Abosede, can you hear me now?
Please confirm that you can hear me.
Yes, I can. I think Abosede's network is a bit shaky. Uh,
Okay. I think there is a lag. Can you give
yeah,
me 1 minute to just set my connection?
yeah, take your time.
Hello, please confirm that you can hear me.
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Sorry for that break. My network is active.
Welcome back.
All right. So Moses, I was actually asking, how does it feel to be a hot cake at the moment? I mean, landing, different offers.
I'm not. I'm not sure what cake is the word though. I'm not sure what cake is the word, but I mean it feels good. From sorry, we don't have a position from you now. For you now to, I don't think your offer aligns with my goals at the moment. Feels really good.
That's awesome. That's good to know. So I'd just like to throw it to the house, right? To make this more engaging, right? If can anyone just talk about, say, an interview scenario that they've had in the past, say your oral story, something like that, during one or two interviews that you've had, maybe a memorable experience, something to just share, maybe something horrible or something great that you've experienced during an interview. I'll just give the floor to like 2, 3 people. Can someone share with us before we proceed? Anyone? Okay, we have Grace.
Great.
Grace, you have the floor.
All right. Good evening, everyone, once again. So
Good evening.
I remember the first time I actively started looking for internships after I completed my virtual assistant course on ALX. So I had researched product managers to work with, and I reached out to this person. We already had the interview date and everything. It was going so well, and out of the blues, it just asked me, what do you think I do? I said, you're a product manager, you speak, I was feeling the interview. And then he asked me, where do I work? And that was the moment that I realized that I did not research the company where he works at. So I just knew that I was a product manager. I didn't know what he was managing. I didn't know what his work was about. I didn't know what his company was about. And it was just horrible. It was just horrible. I later got the internship though, but it was very awkward after that point. He just had to tell me that okay, research the company and then let me know if it's something you like to work with. So yeah, that's still like my worst story ever.
Sorry about that, Grace.
Wow. I hope
Congratulations.
you learned your lesson from that.
I did. I did.
All right, thank you for sharing. Anyone else wants to? Is there anyone else that wants to share with us? Say any interview experience that stood out for them in the past. Okay, there is no one else. I think we can just move ahead. All right. So again, thank you all for joining this today's interview prep session by People in Product. We have with us Moses Afolabi. Moses Afolabi is a product manager and he has been on hot seat recently, interviewing for jobs and then eventually getting multiple offers. I remember last year, I don't know, I can't remember last year if it was November, December when Moses posted about on LinkedIn about looking for opportunities, a new job, and then I was really rooting for him. And recently, he shared the news about getting offers from different organizations, and just recently resumed with another company. Really happy for him. And then we have him today to share with us his interview journey, his strategies, right, for landing the multiple offers and being a hot cake in the PM world. All right, Moses,
I'm not
welcome
going to
again.
that, but anyway, thank you so much
So
for
welcome again, Moses.
it
You have the floor.
feels so good. Can you hear me? So can you guys hear me?
Yes, Moses, I can hear you.
Yes, we can.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Glow will always be glow. So yes, I want to say thank you to PIP for having me here as a speaker. I think I might have to turn off my camera. I don't know what's wrong with my network. Uh, can you guys still hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right. So yeah, I was going to say it's glow amusing, no, it's glow. Yeah, I was going to say thank you to PIP for having me. I can't say thank you enough because some 2 years ago I joined PIP as a community member, and I can remember vividly that the very first call I joined was the interview prep session. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm in love with the session. And yes, I've recently, gotten some offers. I resigned my job for reasons best known to me in November. I took some time off and went into the job market. And by the end of January, I was able to, get things out of the market. And I think I loved where I found myself. And that means a sport where I was able to then decide, which of these guys best align with my goals. One of the reasons why I'm bringing this um, let me say talk, and maybe interactive session to us today is that, I've over the past few months, I've seen PMs being frustrated. It's a thing to even get the interview in the first place, and then it's a thing to then bagging the job, right? So I hope that at the end of my TED talk and Perspire to Maguire, you guys will be able to, pick a few lessons from my experience, from everything I've done, like in terms of, or everything I do, let me use that word, in terms of preparing for interview. I call it my winning strategies, right? And I've shared this with a lot of my friends, and they come back telling me that it worked. So yeah, that's my brief introduction. So can you guys still hear me? Let me know if my Kadenuga has chased me away.
Yes,
At
we
least-
can.
okay. So I'm sorry, I'm bringing this slide because notes readers, because it's actually available on my LinkedIn page, right? So I just pulled it up from there to come and share with you guys. So briefly, this is just to this is my proven strategy, and I think I can vouch that it is relevant to even those who are not PMs, right? And yeah, let's go on to the very first note that I have here, which is that your CV is very, very important, right? That cannot be overemphasized. I've Even on these IPS sessions, I've heard people say from time to time that your CV is more like your sales pitch, right? And I've seen CVs and I've seen CVs, right? And I just quickly want to mention that I don't think a there's a universal template for a CV for your CV, right? It's just that there's some things that I feel that should always appear in your CV, right? The first thing is brevity. So you see people with sometimes 2 years experience having CVs of like 3 pages. That is not to say that your 2 years experience does not equate doing so much or doing so well. But for instance, if you check my LinkedIn page, you'd see that I've worked on over 8 or 9 products in 3 years. Some full-time roles, some I was just brought in to, fix things and move along. And if you check my CV, you would see that I have just 3 positions, 3 jobs, 3 experience on it, right? That is to tell you that, and one of the things I've seen is that, I make sure that one of the things I do is I make sure that it is always like catchy. I don't want to bore the reader wherever I say my CV. I make sure that I keep it on one page. On my one page, you'd see what I've done in my previous roles, and you see data, right, to back it up to say, oh, I did X number of integrations. I led a feature that witnessed a X number of dollars, right, in revenue and all of that. I had my skills, I had my volunteering positions, and I had my education. I've heard people say that you don't necessarily have to add your education, but I love to put it there because I actually studied philosophy, and it helps people to, in a way be interested in what I'm doing, to say, oh, this guy crossed from philosophy into doing tech. How does he do it? So it's just one of my selling points, right? So one of the things I just want you to do is revisit your CV, make sure that even if you have so many experiences, right, 10, 15 is possible, right, if you pick up gigs and all, but make sure that everything you're adding on the CV is relevant to the position you're applying to, right? Again, I know that this is sometimes difficult because we tend to apply to numerous roles, right? That we sometimes even lose track, and then one night you just see a rejection email from a Portuguese company that you don't even remember when you applied to them, right? But while you're casting your net wide, I still want to believe that there are some roles that you should meticulously apply to. Please, can you still hear me? And can you see my screen? Uh,
Yes, we can.
all right, thank you very much. So the next thing I want to then talk about is, what do you do before the interview, right? Um, Okay, let me add that this presentation is divided in three parts: what you do before the interview, what you do during the interview, and what you should do after the interview has happened. So the first thing I added there is that you should ask questions, right? Never get tired of asking questions. But again, not in a very annoying way, right? And it's not like a compulsory thing for you to do. Compulsory thing for you to do, right? So I'm saying the instance I added here is, maybe you apply for a position and then you got an email from a company to say, dear Abosede, we went through your CV and we are pleased to inform you that we have shortlisted you for the interview process, blah blah blah. Please confirm your availability, right? You know, this is, I don't know, maybe recruiters have a universal template they are using, but you find that most times these are the kinds of emails that you get. And then a problem that then happens is most of us then enter the interview rooms without even knowing what we're going there to do, right? I think sometime in November, a company reached out to me on LinkedIn, and um the recruiter then said, oh, can I, it was even on a Saturday morning, it was just like, are you available in the next 30 minutes? I just want to have a brief chat with you, right? Don't have a brief chat with me. What do we want to discuss? Do you get? So that I don't come to the call lost. So you tell me you want to have a brief chat with me, and then I get to the call, you're asking me how does APIs work. I don't want to find myself in such awkward situation. Though I know how it works, right? But there's also a place of, preparations. So one thing I always encourage people, my friends, to do is that when you get emails inviting you for interviews, even if they tell you you are meeting the CTO, you are meeting the I wanted to say general overseer, you are meeting the MD, right? Ask the person that sent the email that what should you expect, right, on the call. That is very, very much important. So it's going to like guide the way you then prepare for the conversation. So the next thing is for you to familiarize yourself with the CV or the resume that you use. And this is because, we tend to have more than one CV, right? We end up having more than one CV. I don't know. It's just a common trend amongst us. Maybe you're A/B testing your CV to say, oh, maybe in a case where I had intro, we they open it, or if I don't add intro, will I get a call back and all of that. But yes, what this then tells you is that while you are searching, you should have a spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be so glamorous. Just at every point in time, once you apply for a role, add the name of the company, add the position that you applied for, because sometimes you can apply for product owner, sometimes you can apply for product manager. These are just like nomenclatures in different countries. Yeah, I said different countries, different companies, right? So one thing I always encourage to do is have that, spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be something again glamorous, just the company, the position you applied to, maybe the link to um where you saw the job ad, so that by the time you get a call back, you can then quickly go back there to check the job description, right? So can you guys still hear me?
Yes,
Yes, you
Moses,
can,
we're
you can hear
following.
you.
And I hope I'm not boring you guys. Okay, so have a spreadsheet and familiarize yourself with the CV that you sent. So if you had sent a product owner CV to say a logistic company, you don't want to go there preparing yourself for a fintech, right? Because things that you tend to mention, your experiences that you mentioned will then be different. So the third thing is that you should prepare adequately for each step of the interview. So the thing is that on average, as a PM, when you're interviewing, you do two stages. So that's on average. First stage where you meet, excuse me, the first stage where you meet the HR, and then the second stage where you meet the what's it called? The maybe the head of products, or yeah, or the CTO sometimes, right? So you want to make sure that you are prepared for every step. Remember that the first thing we said is that for every email you receive inviting for the next stage, you want to make sure that you confirm what you're going there to do, right? Here I added a few resources. There's this YouTube page I love so much, Try Exponent. So what they do is they invite PMs, senior PMs, to answer interview questions of different types, so behavioral, case studies, estimation questions, and all of that. Another thing I do at this point is I talk with ChatGPT, right? Prompt it to give me sample questions, right? That includes personal, questions like tell me about yourself. So I'll tell ChatGPT things like, oh, I'm going for so interview, is the second stage. I'm expecting to do this at the interview session. Assume the position of the interviewer, and I'll assume the position of the interviewee, right? And then ChatGPT asks me questions. I answer them, type them out, send it to ChatGPT. Then I get like reviews, right? And then he even gives me like a better, what's it called? A better version of whatever I, imputed. I'm not sure, but whatever I've sent to it, right? And okay, I think that was in January. There was even a day that I had an interview with the company at 9 o'clock, 9 to 10. Then I had an interview with another company from 10 to 11. So the one from 9 to 10 was just like, I think I was just meeting the HR, and then the one for 10 to 11 was me meeting the CTO, right? So what I did was, as early as 6 a.m., I was up, right? Because I had a very busy day the previous day. So I was up as early as 6 a.m. I made sure that I prepared for the different stages. The interesting thing is that just some days before, I'd met with the HR in the one where I was meeting with the CTO. Ideally, someone can say, oh, the preparation for that was adequate, right? It was enough for me to then go and meet the HR in the next company. But no, I did not do that. So I prepared to meet the HR that day. I prepared to meet the CTO of the other company that day. Interestingly, the first company was a fintech. The second company was a SaaS company. So I made sure that I prepared adequately for the two of them. So I don't know. Like I said, this slide is available on my LinkedIn page, so you can just like check out the Try Exponents link, or you can just go to YouTube and type Try Exponents. You'd see them. You can even subscribe to their newsletter. Yeah, and join interview prep sessions on Tuesdays. Thank you very much. So the third thing is to research about the company. So I think was it Gift? She said something close to this, right? Researching about, in our own case, interviewer. I think maybe in the next point I added that. So make sure that you research the company you're going to interview for. You don't want to go to the company's interview and they're like, "What are we doing?" And then you're like, "Okay." So interestingly, I think all of the companies I interviewed for recently asked me what they do, right? And they often sound surprised when they find out that I've already gone to their company page, I familiarized myself with their values, with their cultures, and their core values. I know their products, right? For those that are not paid products, I've even tried them out. I think that's another point, right? So I've even tried them out. So when they ask me, oh, what do you think we do? And then I think, for instance, there was a lending as a service company that interviewed me, and they asked me what I thought they did. And I told them all of their products, right? They have 3 products. So I told them all of their products. And then at one point, before they could answer, I then told them that, I was even already seeing them exploring this market, right? And then they were like, oh, interestingly, that's why they are looking to hire. So that means like I have like foresight and all. And I got the job, actually. I got the job. So again, research about the company, right? There are very quick ways to do this. Just type the company's name in ChatGPT, right? You can even get as detailed as the funding they have, right? You can go on LinkedIn. You can randomly type their name on Twitter. Twitter is a very unfiltered space. So even if they have like toxic managers and all, you can already see for yourself. And recently, one of my friends introduced me to Glassdoor, right? Funny how I've, up until the time she mentioned it, I've never thought of using that, right? So go to Glassdoor, check the reviews to know what they are doing, right? So yeah, this is the next thing. Use the product, right? And note your feedbacks. For every interview that I've had, right? I make sure that I use their product. So if it's a free product, I use it. If it is not free, I type it into ChatGPT that, oh, what does these guys do? Give me a typical user flow of their features, right? What features do they have? Another thing I do is I go on YouTube to watch their product demos, right? Especially for SaaS companies that you have to pay to use them. So I go to watch their product demos, and at the point of watching it, I already taking note of um maybe loopholes, possible improvements. It's not a must for you to actually like spot those things, but you want to make sure that you do your due diligence, right? So I make sure that I pay attention to their loopholes and all of that. And then I come up with just a small user story and some acceptance criteria. And I go to the call with some level of constructive criticism that, oh, I don't know whether your team is already considering this, or maybe you missed it out. But when I was using your product, I noticed this and this. And I'm thinking this is the best way to like approach it. I'm sure that if I'm a part of your team, I would be given the resources and I'll be able to see things better internally and then prioritize to say whether we should chase this or not. Right. So again, every time I do this, recruiters are always surprised. They're always saying, oh, that's thoughtful of you. I'm like, is it the case where most, interviewees don't do that? I think you should, right? So yeah, the next one here is that if you are given a case study, chances are that it will have at least 10 pages of text. So, interestingly, even if you sent it before the call, most times, I mean, I'm trying to juggle meetings. The person that will review your case study obviously is a program manager. He's trying to juggle meetings, catch up with devs that would lie to him or her that this is going to take 3 weeks, and she find out that, oh, this is just 5 days. She's having a whole plethora of issues already. And then the candidate sends a 15 pages, what's it called? A 15 pages long case study. Bro, I will not read it. I'll probably just skim through it. Fine, it's probably what's it called? It's probably demeaning the efforts that you've put into it. But the truth is, I'll just skim through it, and then I'm expecting you on the call to be able to, discuss the case study. Now, even if they told you that they will not discuss this case study, my dear brothers and sisters, make sure that you prepare yourself to go and defend whatever you've written in your case study. If you like, work with people to help you get it done. Work with ChatGPT, do anything you like to save time and all of those, but make sure that you have an input in that case study such that if anybody wakes you up in the middle of the night to ask you anything about it, you are then able to, talk about it. Now, a next level to it is that if you are going to the next call to discuss your case study, you don't want to go there and present a 10 pages long document filled with text. Like, you don't want to do that. You are going to board the interviewer out. You are going to be board the interviewer out. So the best thing for you to do is for you to, create a slide. Nothing fancy. You can just make it like this black and white that I've done, but of course not. You can just like add a few of the company's, logo, their elements, maybe their colors and all of that. Add images, right, to it, and then take that to the call. I've done this. Okay, so of all the interviews that I've ever done, and by the way, I don't know if I've mentioned that in my career so far, I've done 10 interviews, and all of those 10 interviews, I got the job, right? And I think it's just on 2 occasions that I had to do case studies. And with those case studies, I went into the call with a slide. And when I got into the call, I think the very last one I had, that was in January, the person was like, oh, thank you so much. I was already bothered. I was already wondering how you want to, discuss this long, whatever. And I was like, oh, that, you know, um, I already thought of that as well. So that spoke to my thoughtfulness. That spoke to empathy, which is another core skill that a product manager should have, right? And like I always say, as product managers, you are even a product yourself. So make sure that everything you are doing is something that will make you marketable, something that would, make people want to use you, not in the bad sense, but people want to have you on their team, right? So be generous with colors, relevant images. This will show the interviewers that you're empathetic as well. Now, the last part is prayer. I don't know, this cannot be overemphasized that you should pray. You can't just. So something very funny happened when I resumed my new place of work. I was having a discussion with some of those that interviewed me. I did like 3 layers of interview, and every one of them was thorough. So I was having a discussion with those that interviewed me and all, and one of them was like, "Guy, do you know that you competed against 15 candidates?" And I'm like, "Oh, interesting, right?" So I mean, beyond all my preparation, beyond maybe my experience, because I'm coming from raw hands-on experience. Like I've always worked in startups, so I've seen all the shades of shege, right? I'm sales, I'm marketing, I'm this, I'm that. Beyond all of those, I know that it's not possible for me to, you know, at least maybe for them to have shortlisted 15 candidates, that means maybe like 30 at least sent in their CV, right? And that means every other person too has like substance. Do you get? So I don't want to believe it's just my knowledge that took me through that, right? So one of the things I do is before my interview, after my interview, I make sure that I pray. I don't know who you pray to, just make sure that you pray. You'll be needing it a lot. So what's the number 8, check your internet always. Check your internet and always have a backup. Like I added there, for me, I have a 5G router, I have a Glow service provider. I make sure that one or two persons are around for me to easily switch my network. I remembered second stage interview that I had with first stage interview, the very first call that I had. My network was okay till I joined the call, introduced myself, and I started asking questions, and network started acting up. I almost lost it, right? But because these are one of the things I always envisage, so I make sure that at every point in time I have like 2 to 3 service providers around me. Even if it's 100 MB that I have on different ones, at least you use the one with 100 MB to tell them, please just give me a minute, I'm having network issues. Yeah. So prepare yourself to ask relevant questions. You don't want to have a 1 hour long interview session and then at the end of it, so Moses, do you have any questions for us? No, I don't, right? I don't think it's the best thing to do, right? Because as much as you are being interviewed, one of the ways and one of the things that gives me confidence in interviewing for a company, I don't even use the word for, I use the word with, because as much as they're interviewing me, I'm interviewing them, right? I have a friend that recently turned down an offer of like, I think 1.3 million naira because during the interview session, she noticed some traits in the interviewers, right? So as much as they're interviewing me, I also know that I'm also interviewing them, right? And of course, I'm quite confident of the substance I have, right? So I'm going there, I'm going to that call to also see, are you the best fit for me as much as I'm the best fit for you? So questions like, how is your team structured? Because I want to be set up for success, obviously. I want to know how you define success because I don't want to be working for months and then at the time of maybe appraisals and I see, oh, you've not been doing anything. What would you say what would they say your role would be when you start? So why are you bringing me on board, right? Sometimes it's just for UX improvement, sometimes it's just for growth, sometimes it's just to build dashboards. You want to know that already, and then you want to ask for a clear structure of salary increase. I do this in every interview I am opportune to grace, right? Because I don't want to then join your company and after 1 year of working and I'm saying, oh, so Alpha dollar when I joined the company was 500 naira. Dollar is now like 2K. Please, also. And then you're telling me we never had that kind of agreement. Please, I need to know how you structure your salary increment, right? Yeah, I think that summarize what you do before your interview. So in just about 8 minutes, I'm supposed to walk you through what you do during interview and what you do after interview. So during the interview, I keep my responses short, relevant, and precise. One of the places that I noticed, I also had issues with that. One of the places I noticed that we often eat into time is when you are asked to introduce yourself. There's this urge to, especially for those of us that have done so much, there's this urge to say, oh, I'm Afolabi Moses. I used to be a salesperson. Then I moved on to being a product manager. I've worked on social product. They brought me in to do this. Bro, just keep your responses as short, relevant, and precise as possible. Again, another thing I do is I always read the room and crack relevant jokes at intervals. I don't want to bore my interviewer. Yeah, I don't want to bore my interviewer. I remembered there was an interview call I had with the CTO, and the very first place we started was talking about Manchester United, right? And before we knew it, we spoken for long. And by the time the call ended, it was already like, oh, I would love to have you on my team, really. But we are interviewing other candidates, I must confess. So I know that as much as they're interviewing other candidates, I left an impression already, right? So another thing to do is when you're talking, add data in your responses, right? I did not always do this before, but again, one of the things I do is this last part here, I ask for feedback. So from the feedbacks I get, I saw that people want to hear what you've done. How does it translate to Naira and Kobo? Because in the long run, even if you're working for a non-profit, you still want to make money to keep the lights on, right? So there's no crime in not knowing something. Again, there is no crime in not knowing something. If you don't know it, just admit it. Shikena, tell them, thank you very much for pointing it out. Can you tell me how this works, right? So maybe someone is asking about API responses and you don't know. There's no crime in admitting that you don't know. I think the problem arises when you are trying to ramble around to give responses that would most likely end up being wrong. That's one. Number two, you are showing them that you know so much ITK, right? You don't want to learn because again, I'm sure that one of the things they look out for is whether or not you are ready to learn. And I had idea that a fun fact is Gherkin user story format. I never knew there was I never even knew there was user story format until I interviewed for a company that was in 2023, and I was talking to a PM, and she said, "What do you understand by Gherkin user story format?" And I was lost. Again, ask relevant, ask relevant questions. Chai, you're buying me. Ask relevant questions. Ask for their feedbacks. It always shows that you are ready to learn, you are ready to improve. I do that. If you must have feedback for me, right? Then again, ask when you should expect a feedback. For a lot of people, you don't want a situation whereby you are expecting a mail, right? At every point in time. Immediately I done with the interview, you're expecting mails. And one interesting thing is that it is when you're expecting a mail that Temu, Konga, Jumia will start sending you mails, right? And then when you hear your phone pop, you're like, oh, I did the one. And then you check and you're like, buy extra 5 gig, So you want to know when to expect the feedback so that so that you can look out for it, right? You guys are laughing at me. It's the truth. For some weird reasons, when I'm expecting alerts, that's when MTN will be telling me that I can upgrade my data plan. Please, I'm waiting for Wema alert. Thank you very much. So after the interview, again, pray, right? Follow up with the recruiters as the case may be, right? So a simple thank you email, especially when you learn something new, you want to point that out in the email. Thank you so much for finding time to, interview me. A very interesting thing is that you see their email, right? So take for instance, it was the HR that scheduled the email between yourself and a product manager, and you learn something from that product manager. If you check the invite sent to you, you see the product manager's email, pick it up, send them an email to thank them, right? All you want to do, you are selling yourself literally. You want to be in their faces. look at Cowbear, Picnic, and all these guys. No matter how big they even are, they still go as deep as into the streets to add flyers, right? Because you want to make sure that we are thinking milk, we are thinking them, right? So as much as possible, we want to make sure that if you are thinking recruitment, right, in this session, it is you that you are thinking about, right? And hopefully somebody on this call too is not applying for that role, sharp, so that so I not be like 2 or 3 people doing the same thing. Then another thing I do is connect with interviewers, right? I check them out on LinkedIn. In fact, I point out straight up that, oh, thank you so much, Ayola. I'll be connecting with you on LinkedIn. Then immediately after the call, I send them a connection invite, and then send them a text. Oh, thank you for your call today. I mean, make sure that you leave lasting impression. And that way, say they can even then, maybe see your LinkedIn page to see things that you've posted over time, right? So for someone like me now, I post articles and all, and I want to make sure that, oh, you see that, I'm always, this guy knows what he's doing, or he knows what he's doing. So yes, thank you very much, everyone. And this is supposed to be about me. Our questions already. Okay. So again, I wish you guys the best. I know the market is fierce. Trust me, the competition is fierce. Somebody told me that I interviewed against 15 candidates for the same role. Why? Well, yeah, the competition is fierce, but with good strategy, God, and everything, I'm sure you'll be fine, right? Then another thing I forgot to mention before your interview that you should always do is that check out your interviewers on LinkedIn or on Twitter or something, so that you can have an idea into how they think, right? It's not always a direct reflection of who they are, but you take, for instance, you're interviewing for a growth role, and then you see that on the call they've added somebody that is that they've added somebody, and then you check out that person and you see that the person is a technical product manager, right? One thing I can bet is that because person is a technical product manager, even if they're interviewing you for growth role, the person will ask you technical questions. It's just a no-brainer, right? The person wants to know, so how does API works? How does versioning works, right? So you want to know what to expect, just have an idea of what to expect. Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. That will be all from me for now, and I'll be taking questions. Abose, over to you.
Wow. Wow. That was such an insightful session. This is a masterclass on its own. And for real, I have learned a lot, right? The things I don't know before, now I know them. I'm sure every other person on this call has also learned 1 or 2 things. I've gotten new strategies that I need to apply, for my next interview prep and then my interview as well. Thank you very much for sharing this. It was really it was very insightful. And I know people have questions to ask you already. So if you have questions to ask Moses, please use the raise hand button. You can drop your question in the chat, or you can even use the Q&A feature as well to drop your questions. Do we have questions from the audience? Okay, we have someone here. Hi, Vanessa. You can speak.
Good evening. Thank you
Good
so much
evening,
for the session. I gained a lot actually, and I actually made an error. I think today actually, and I was like, oh, I did mean to listen to this before
Sorry
replying
about
that. Okay, so
Sorry.
my question is, as regards what you've not worked on, so you probably see them on the description, and it's something that you've not worked on. So definitely you worked on some aspects, and you've not worked on other aspects. So I'm asking, like, how do you position yourself as regards the interview so that it looks at like, oh, I have experience in this? Because actually, let me be sincere, I sometimes I do feel somehow I'm like, oh, I don't have this experience, I don't have that experience. me applying for this role, do you think I can actually navigate it all during the interview? What can I really say? Because like I'm very good at explaining what I've done. But that's
Mhm.
one like this that I feel like, oh, I've not done this. It's actually some me explain. I'm like, so sometimes it actually holds me back to apply for some roles. So I just wanted to help me to navigate through this.
Okay. So I think I love the question, right? And why I love it is because I've jumped around a lot, right? Not jump around as in, leaping up and down, but yeah, in terms of industries. So quick one, I started off my career in an energy company, right? I know they don't do products per se, but yes, I started in an energy company. And from an energy company, I moved to a fintech. And from a fintech, I moved to a SaaS solution. Now, while I was on a SaaS solution, I worked on a dating app. I worked on a logistics company. I worked on a, what's it called? Inventory management solution. And now I'm working in a communication as a platform, on a communication as a platform solution focused on AI, right? Now, what this then tells you is that for every time I've applied for a role, trust me, I don't have the experience already. Like, I do not have the experience. But one thing about project management is, though some people can hide it, right? Because some people can come to the call and then oversell themselves, and then when they get to the job, they promise 10, they are doing -5, right? But it's usually difficult for you to, hide that you are a product manager, because no matter the industry, one thing I found out, and take this for someone that has gone around a lot, is that the core principles are still the same. Like adaptability, project management, the way back end, front end, and middleware works, user experience, user stories, things like system architecture and everything. Everything is literally the same. Now, it then boils down to you to then be able to sell yourself, right? Look at salespeople, for instance. Sometimes they will sell a car, then they change company, and then they are selling health devices, right? So one of the core skills you should have as a program manager is adaptability. And I tell that to like a lot of people that I talk with, that you have to always be adaptable. I will tell you for free that you should not, because maybe you've not worked on a particular thing, decide that you don't want to apply. You don't want to do the kind of jobs I've applied to, right? Like I do. Once I see pro manager and maybe I'm in a crunch time to get a job, like once I see pro manager, I will apply, right? Is then what is then left for me is that come to the call and then be able to like, what's it called, express myself to say, okay, see you, I don't have experience in your field, but I would go extra mile. I was telling Abosede and some of my friends yesterday, like on the group chats, that as of yesterday, I was reading research papers. Like even when I was studying philosophy in UI, I barely went to research gates. But then I needed to work on the feature at the office. I went to research gates, went to look for research paper. So I will do anything to make sure that my product survives, right? So yes, apply to any role. Trust me, the worst anybody can tell you, the worst. Sorry about that. The anybody can tell you is a no, right? Sorry, we cannot move on with you. Just apply to the role. Yeah. Vanessa.
Yeah. So okay, as
Yeah,
regards
Vanessa, you
learning
can speak.
tools, thank you very much. So as regards learning tools, right? So there are some job. Also, okay, I've done like internship roles. I've not really like gotten that job. So I'm not asking as regards learning tools. So sometimes you see some job adverts. They just post it out there and they are putting like about, let's say, up to 10 to, let me not just exaggerate, let's say like 10, for example. You see like 10 tools and you're like, oh, I know how to use like 5. Every day you keep learning how to use new
Exactly.
tools and all that, and you're like, oh, if probably they should now ask me questions about these tools. So I think for me it's more of those tools and those no,
Number
those
one,
tools actually, and some. Okay.
I think I can take that quickly, because I found myself in such situation recently. So what I'll tell you is that, number one, a very serious company will not tell you, will not ask you what tools you are familiar with. A serious I'll tell you that for free. They will not ask you that what tools are you familiar with, right? They will just add it there that, okay, these are the tools we use, right? Now, two things you can do. Number one, take crash course about that too on what's it called on YouTube, right? The number two thing you can then do is that just go to the call. They most likely will not ask you. I can bet it. So, like, for instance, when I was in what's it called? When I was in ACA, so at Energy, we were not even using any work management tool. Interesting enough, right? We're using spreadsheets and Slack to manage work, right? And then when I got to ACA, we're using Jira. Jira was what I was familiar with, right? Then I got to Bones. Bones was using Linear. I've never used Linear. All I just had to do was pick up. They did not even add it in job description, right? Now, take for instance my new place of work. Nobody even asked me. I did 3 levels of interview. Nobody asked me what tools I'm familiar with. I'm just the one that when I'm pitching myself, I tell you, oh, and that's one of the things you should look at. I don't know. Maybe I should put up a post on LinkedIn around how to introduce yourself. So one of the things I do when I'm introducing myself is that I make sure that I exhaust every possible question you can ask me. Trust me, I will exhaust it. And I will do that under 5 minutes. So I'm telling you, oh, I have data analytics tools, and for that I use spreadsheets. I'm familiar with Power BI. I'm good at wireframing and prototyping. I use Vimscan and Figma for that. Then I'm telling you that at the end of everything, I can adapt to whatever tools that you are using quickly. So it's that simple. You don't have to overthink it, right? Yes, that's it. I think someone else
Thank
has
you
their
very
hand.
much.
Or it's almost 8 o'clock.
All right, Vanessa, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I hope
We
that
have
answers your
someone else. Adiola. Adiola, you can unmute and ask your question.
Hi, good evening.
Good
Good evening,
evening.
everyone.
Good evening, Adela. Good evening, Adela.
Yes, and thank you for the very insightful session. So I wanted to ask that we've been talking about how to go about interviews. Although I came a bit late, so I don't know if you mentioned it before I came. So I wanted to ask, what are the unique things you can even do to even get to the interview stage? Because I've applied to a lot of roles and I won't even get um a mail, like a follow-up mail. So I wanted to ask the unique things maybe you do when applying, or unique things that you include to your CV that will get you to that interview stage. Thank you.
Trying to see if I can quickly share my CV. I can pull it up and just add the link so that people can maybe check. I don't know if that's what does the magic. But then another thing I do is that I'm always talking on PIP, right? So maybe sometimes if I apply to a company, the next thing I'm doing is I'm asking on the group, please, who knows anybody in this company, right? So that way, so take for instance, there's a company I interviewed for, though they didn't move on with me because they later recruited internally. There's a company I interviewed for, and I just went on LinkedIn, checked their page to see those I know there. And I found out that somebody I have engaged with in PIP before works there. I texted the guy, and interesting enough, it was even the one that was leaving. I was looking for a replacement for. Do you get? So I skipped all the protocols and then went straight to the head of product. So one of the things you should try to do is I'm trying to look for my CV. So one of the things you should try to do is look for people that you may know in that company and reach out to them. I sincerely do not believe in cover letters, maybe because I'm a very lazy person, right? I don't believe in cover letters. But if it requires you to, send a cover letter, make sure that the email is like selling, like very short. I don't do more than 2 paragraphs, and I make sure that in those 2 paragraphs you can see that I have generated revenue. Like I've worked on a product that made money. Do you get? Then like number 1 is look for people that you know, that you might know. Number 2 is send cover letters if you feel you want to. Number 3 is the importance of PIP, right? And other, product communities, WhatsApp groups that you might be in. Just drop it there. Somebody might know somebody, right? Then I was going to say something. Yes, even if you don't know anybody in the company, and I think I've done this a lot, maybe 1 or 2 times, and it actually worked for me. Sometimes they don't respond to my message, but sometimes like it works for me. So there is this deck that I have. I'm not using my original laptop, I'm using my work laptop. So there's this deck I have that pitches me. So it's so very interesting. We have gone beyond time. I would have tried to pull that up. So there's this deck I have that just pitches me. So on the very first page, you're seeing Afolabi Moses Eniola applying for so role. Then the next page, you're seeing your company's logo, you're seeing your company's images, right? The next page, I give you a list of things I've done. The next page, I give you a list of your culture and how I fit into it. I take my time in applying. That's the honest truth. I put my culture and things I've done, and then I send that to you and I let you know how you can be of help to me. That I'm applying to your company and I don't know anybody. Can you please recommend me? And on like 2 occasions, even with like international companies, it has worked. There was one that I did recently that the next thing I did was I got a text from the MD straight up for the role. So yes, and again, the worst anybody can tell you is no. If they don't want to help you, just take it as maybe your help is not with them or something. Sorry, I'm a very religious person. Yeah.
Thank you very, very, very much.
Yeah. I hope that helps.
Thank you very much, Moses. I think we can take one last question. Someone here is raising the okay, the person is online raising their hand. Okay, that'll be yes. We'll take this last question and then we'll round up this session. Just go ahead.
Okay, good evening, house. Good evening, Moses. Your TED talk was really insightful. I'm really grateful,
Yeah,
and I wish to be like you someday.
Limau.
Well, please, my question. I'm just transitioning into product management, and I'm just still doing my certification courses. But my problem is, I would like to. I'm looking for where to do intern. I've finished a couple of um certification courses, but I'm looking for where to do my intern. So if anybody can post me, link me to any Slack community or a WhatsApp group where I can just get like hands-on experience, I'll really
Okay.
be thankful. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, to answer that, I would say you should join the PIP community, introduce yourself. I also have a post on LinkedIn around how you can, maybe you should just go through my articles, how you can do that, right? So introduce yourself. At least I've gotten about 4 or 5 roles from PIP community, right? So just introduce
Sorry.
yourself, tell
So,
people.
hello.
Yeah, sorry, let me just wrap up. Yeah, so introduce yourself and then you can join the weekly check-in calls. It's like a group therapy session that we do as members of PIP. And then right there, you can then tell them, oh, this is what you do and these are your goals, right? So yes. Then I think Adiola, so this was the stuff I was mentioning. So this is Musa Valabi for IDPC. Then just a quote I live by, and this about me, my big wins, thank you, and I leave you a body text. Yep. All right. I think we've written more.
All right. Thank you so much, Moses. We've already gone past time.
Yeah.
I am sure that everyone here has really learned a lot today. Everyone with our different emojis, can we just give a shout out to Moses for the insightful session this evening? Thank you so much, Moses. Oh, for everyone raising hand, I'm afraid we can't take more questions. But you can join the community. If you're not already a part of the community, you can join the community, ask your question. You can tag Moses. Moses is there and is going to answer your question. People are also asking about the slide. So he mentioned that he has it on his LinkedIn, so you can follow him on LinkedIn and go through his articles. He has very insightful articles as well on his LinkedIn page, so you can check that out. Moses, would you like to share your LinkedIn for everyone? Thank you so much. We really appreciate
Thank
this
you, guys.
session. Thank you very much. And thank
I
you,
mean,
everyone. So we have other
Not-
programs in the community that you can always join. We have the interview prep session like we had today. We also have the group mentorship session. This is also it holds twice a month on Tuesdays as well, so simultaneously with the interview prep session. and we have mentors who come on the session as well to answer product questions that you might have. So do well to join. There's also webinars also twice a month. We have one coming up on Thursday. So if you want to level up your technical writing skills, right, as a product manager, you should do well to join that session. It's happening this Thursday. And then we have the weekly check-in call every Saturday as well. It's more like a therapy session for PMs, and you can come and rant and unravel whatever your week had been. So do well to join. If you're not a member of the community, I shared the link in the chat box here. So do well to join using that link. Thank you very much for joining today's session. Thank you, Moses. Thank you, everyone. And we've come
Thank you,
to the end of
everyone.
today's session.
I enjoyed
Enjoy your
doing this.
evening.
Yeah. So my name is
Thank you.
Moses Afolabi everywhere. Twitter. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, you can.
My Twitter, my LinkedIn, my Instagram is also Moses Afolabi. Yeah. Thank you. Bye.